Hi guys, welcome back to the Rad Hyrox podcast. Today we are joined by Alex Shabo. She creates the hybrid letter, which we've been following for a while because we think it's very similar and along the lines of what we're trying to create with the podcast. Alex is a very experienced Hyrox racer. We've just found out she's doing a 20-second race in Vegas this weekend. Absolutely mental. If anyone knows how long Hyrox has been going, that is like a lot of races to have completed.
Don't calculate how much money was spent. That's the only thing you're not allowed to do.
Yeah, she's also broke.
Yeah. Also barely surviving.
Yeah, yeah. So back to the newsletter. It's a newsletter you say for strength and endurance athletes and anyone that wants to become one. A really nice strap line. It covers Hyrox, Deca, and hybrid racing. And you interview elites and athletes from all over the community, which is the same purpose and the same aim that we have with the podcast. So it's great to get you on because I think we're very aligned. And yeah, maybe we can cover all these 22 races in the next hour.
Try my best. Try my best.
Oh no, it's so nice to have you and to find out a little bit more about you behind the hybrid letter. But maybe first we could just kind of get into why you decided to create it and where that came from, or where the love for Hyrox came from.
Yeah. So it's been a little over a year. We're at 12K subscribers, which for written content is such a big milestone. And it actually started almost 2 summers ago. Judd, another person that I train with, he is in the newsletter business, does political newsletters, and he was the one who had approached me about this idea about bringing the hybrid community some kind of written content. I think we both are the same human. When we started doing Hyrox, we got obsessed, not only with the racing in the community, but also like the information and the science. Like to us, hybrid is a puzzle piece. And I think you can agree with training and with getting information. There's so much out there. And our goal was to find a different way to bring it to the community through something like a newsletter where you can open it up in your email when you're at work. You can hear from experts, from athletes, from moms, from other people in the community that are doing what you do on a day-to-day basis, in also a very concise form. Not everyone has time, although I think we find time to listen to an hour, hour and a half podcast. It's really nice to kind of hear people in a different setting. So our goal was to do that in written form. And I have to say, we're so lucky in the fact that Hyrox was still new and is still pretty new, and everyone's willing to talk to you. And I feel like you guys probably feel the same way. I've had the best conversations with every type of athlete and expert. They're so willing to share their journey, so willing to share their tips and strategies that it's been a very easy way to connect with the community and bring people kind of in on how obsessed we are with hybrid and everything hybrid.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I think, yeah, because it's so young, like it is still young, even though it feels like it's grown and it has grown exponentially, it's still a really young sport. So everyone is very, very willing to give up their time and share like how they're trained. And I think because people don't know the best way to train right now, everyone's training like sharing, yeah,
Yep.
how they train and what they do, which is like no one knows whether it's the best way or
Yeah, I think everyone's just so open, which is really, really nice.
Yeah.
But I think you touched on something good there as well, like that they're quite, I think, not short, but it's like a 10-minute read, or it's not an hour-long
Yep.
podcast, which is quite nice for, I don't know if you're on the tube and commuting, or you've only got like a short amount of time, but you want to like get the information in. You can get it in like in a short, concise way by just reading through that. So I think that's a really valid point you said there.
I think like I was just thinking as well when you said like you can read it at your desk. If I was still at work doing a job that I used
Yeah.
to, I would 100% be on my
It's
laptop.
like you're working. You don't
Yeah,
even
in the
know.
office. You know, I'm working. It's a bit harder to put a podcast in or watch a YouTube video, but like, you know, it's a bit easier to read a newsletter. So yeah, for sure. I bet there's loads of people reading your newsletters at work, pretending to their boss that they're working really hard.
I know. And I feel like at the time that we started it, people in our community, our local community in the DC area, Hyrox was not a big thing. There was like maybe 5 to 10 of us that would kind of religiously travel for these races, but when we started, we were like, I wonder if there's a way to tap into people that haven't heard about it. They don't know what hybrid training is. And I know for me, it totally transformed my fitness journey the last 3 years. And the athlete I am today is very different than the person, an athlete I was 3 years ago. So it's nice to kind of share that passion of how much it changed for us and hopefully inspire people who hadn't heard about it to hear about it and read about it more, especially because you never know, the people that read a newsletter like this may not be the people that listen to podcasts or have an Instagram, who use social media to the way that social media is used, especially for Hyrox. So our goal was to kind of open it to new audiences just because we were so passionate about it and wanted to share it with them.
Yeah, and the Hyrox community is over such a wide range of people. Like, I think that's a really
ages.
really good point. Yeah, like different ages, different sexes, like different parts of the world, and everyone does get their information differently, and everyone learns differently and keeps on top of things in a different way. So to be able to access it, yeah, online and read it instead of maybe having to listen to a podcast is really cool. Like covering all aspects, which is what the Hyrox community want to do, isn't it?
Yeah.
So what about your background in sport in general? You've always been into fitness, or how did you begin your, you said 3-year Hyrox journey? Where did that come from?
So, I mean, when I was younger, I did soccer, I did track and cross country. I feel like that was usually where you hear people coming from in the background. And then in college, I competed in running my first year, but got seriously injured and just couldn't get back to that type of competitive running. And it took me a good couple years after that to really trust my body with being able to do mileage again and enjoy running. I'm super fortunate that when I left college, moved to DC, I started running and I found a running community. And I was the person who would do a half marathon like every few months. I loved the distance running piece of it, but just like any type of, I would say, like running venture like that, I was only running, not doing anything else. And I just burned myself out. I wasn't enjoying it. The distance running didn't feed me the way it had once. So I went to group fitness, and group fitness was like this new passion for me. I was so used to working out alone. And then I was feeling this like team identity again. And I loved that. And I started coaching. And I think honestly, a lot of my fitness was centered around coaching other people. I've been in the fitness industry now for almost 14 years, which is crazy. I've coached multiple different types of individuals in different places and different gyms. And in 2022, a couple of other coaches, we saw this Hyrox race and they were like, we're just going to try it. Like, we don't know what it is. We'll just go venture towards it. And we all went to New York in 2022 and got humbled. We were all like, we remember walking off there and being like, what just happened? I mean, I say this and they hate when I say this. We had the fittest guys in our gyms staring at the sled push for the pro men, being like, I can't move this and I don't know what to do. And that was like, watching that was for me like a hell yes moment. I got this competitive sense that I was missing. And now instead of just coaching other people, I had this desire to also pour back into myself with my own fitness. And not only did I continue to train people now specifically for Hyrox and specifically in like the Hyrox type class setting, but also myself. And I was able to go compete and learn about it. And I always say, Jake Thompson, who does compete every day, I love what he says about competition is I think people look at Hyrox sometimes and they're super wary of it because it's like, I don't want to compete and compare against someone else. It's a really hard place to be as an adult. We do that every day in our normal jobs. Why would I want to do that in my pastime hobby? But really, competition is only about finding your potential and every time seeking a higher potential for yourself. And I love changing that mindset when I'm training other people, when I'm training for myself, that the competition isn't going to be about the person next to you. It's going to be about how can I make myself better? And I'm a type A perfectionist, but I know a lot of other people are like that in their daily life. And that is what Hyrox really brought me, is that ability to find competition in a healthy way, in a way that like only strived me to be better in my daily life as well as in my like training and fitness.
Yeah, that I mean, that's really cool. And I think there's probably a lot of people that can relate, whether they've come from a running background and they've added in the strength element, or whether they've come from a gym background and then they've started to do the run. It's definitely made people a bit more like all rounded, and probably given people back that team element, because whilst you can compete as a solo, you can also compete doubles, but
Yep.
everyone's going to do the same race. So even if you're on your own at the race, you still feel like part of something and part of a team, because everyone can appreciate the race and what you're about to do. And if you finish it, whether you finish in an hour or whether you finish in 4 hours, everyone's like, fair bloody play, because it is hard,
Yep.
isn't it? And you do get
Yeah.
humbled on the first one, because I think you think, oh yeah, I'll be fine, and oh, it's only a K in between the exercises, like
Exactly.
but actually, what is it? Once you get to these burpee broad jumps, you're a bit like, oh shit.
I know. And I always tell people like who are intimidated from the start is to just try one, even if it just means like stepping in the arena and doing a relay where it's a lot like smaller chunks of time, or even like a doubles, because I've never been in a Hyrox race, which is crazy to me, and had a negative athlete experience within it. Like I've been cheered on by people I don't know. I have females next to me being like, yeah, we got this. Like there's this like community sense that is hard to create in that type of mass population event like this. And that is why I think Hyrox just continues to stay so appealing to different types of athletes, because you'll watch a Hyrox and from the beginning of the day to the end of the day, you have a variety of athletic abilities. And it's very hard to say in a lot of races like that, that is possible. And it's cool that they've created a type of fitness event that you can really draw in this type of community that is looking for encouragement. They're looking for people, they're looking for elite athletes to honestly inspire and like inspire them to do better. And it's really cool that you have a variety of that into this type of sport.
Yeah, absolutely. And then what about like how it's evolved in the last like, well, the 3 or 2 years that you've been doing it? How have you found, like, you've obviously taken on so much knowledge and information, and you're a bit of a bookworm or podcast listener and trying to get like all the information you can. Have you found any like trends or anything that stuck out from what you've learned, like from when it started or when it started to grow to now?
I mean, I think overall, the growth that the US has seen in the last 2 years is what happened in Germany and the UK like 5 years ago. Like I think we're doing what has happened. Like now every race in the US sells out within 24 to 48 hours, which I used to sign up like a week before some of these like it was like not even an issue to think about signing up. And now you're planning out almost a year to 6 months of racing, which is crazy. I will say the biggest thing that I'm noticing, and I always ask for advice from athletes who I talk to and also experts. And the biggest change comes down to the training for Hyrox is while there's so many different ways to train, I think the biggest thing that everyone keeps telling me is it's the basics. While the fancy Hyrox workouts go so far when it comes to being flashy on Instagram, the basics are what make the great people better and continue to keep them healthy throughout the training. And I think in a sport like this, where there's so many things you can do to get better, like I feel like I could fill my day every single day with 4 different things to do to be a better Hyrox athlete. But the burnout and the injuries come so fast when you have that at your fingertips that a lot of these big elites and all these coaches and performance coaches are just telling people to almost chill, where it's the slow days that matter just as much as the hard days. And the quality days need to be met with rest and recovery so that you have the performance that you want. And to me, that shift is amazing to see in the fitness industry, number one. And I think is something that's still catching on to these big Hyrox communities that center around group classes. And they're trying to figure out that balance of intensity when it comes to group appeal, as well as like staying healthy and training year round for something that is a year round sport now almost.
Yeah, the season's so long. It's like never ending, really. The season, like
Yeah.
depending on which part of the world you're in, and if you're willing to travel, like you can have like no off season. You can just keep racing and carry on if you feel like you should. But I think like even what you said there about some of the maybe flashy Instagram like reels that you see, it's quite good to remember that just because someone's maybe put a video up of them doing, I don't know, like the 100 wall balls or the really heavy sled push, like it doesn't necessarily mean that that's what you should be doing. Like that they might have filmed that on a separate day from doing something else. Like you can find yourself getting a bit lost, like in the comparison of, oh, but they're doing that, so I should do that, or oh, the elites are training like this, so I should train like that. But like the key you said is, yeah, the basics and your body and what you're able to, you know, it's all relative, isn't it? You know, people have had running volume for years and years and years. They've not suddenly just gone, oh, I'm going to do an 100K week. Like, and
I know. And Hyrox is like for everyone, it's a puzzle piece. And I always love that example because my puzzle looks different than yours, but finding ways to make it fit, like there's always ways to improve in Hyrox, which is why to me it's still so appealing, is that I feel like I'm consistently working towards something for myself. But everyone's going to look different with piecing it together based on like their general health, based on their background, based on what they can manage on like a stress and like daily life basis. And I just talked to an elite last week and she was saying like people need to understand like everyone's in a stage of life and you need to meet yourself where you're at. You may be just a mom who's a new mom trying to deal with two kids at home versus you're 21 years old now, fresh out of school, you have so much more time on your hand. Like there's so many different scenarios that will make like that puzzle piece a little bit different in order to continue to see progress and growth in your own training.
Yeah, 100%. And you do like, I think that's where like they say comparison's the thief of joy, isn't it? And Instagram is probably sometimes not the best thing to be following. Whilst it's inspirational, and sometimes you watch someone doing a workout or I don't know, someone's done really well at a Hyrox race and it gets you motivated. It can have the opposite effect where you feel like you're not doing enough, or somebody that's under life stresses is comparing themselves with somebody that's 21 and doesn't have a job to, you know, being a mum or a dad and, you know, going to work in an office like between 8 and 5 and then trying to fit their training in. And like, yeah, you've got to balance your life with your training rather than trying to just copy what everyone else is doing. But you said taking it back to the basics, can you elaborate on that? Is it just, are you going to say something like, for example, looking at like your running base, looking at your strength, looking at your mobility, like what for anyone that's listening, if they're thinking, well, what are these basics? What's the basic you
So
said to focus on?
I mean, I will say I got caught up in that trap a year ago when I first started my first year of racing Hyrox. I was doing group classes 4 to 5 days a week and running on top of that. And I was like, well, this makes sense. I'm doing Hyrox 5 days a week. I'm only going to keep getting better. And all I saw was times that were similar, times that weren't getting better. Like I never felt amazing year round either. I would had like nagging injuries that would come up occasionally. And I just never felt like I would look forward to a race so I could taper. And I hated that feeling of being like, oh my gosh, I'm so burned out. I finally was like, okay, I need a coach. And I actually hired Dylan. I work with Dylan Scott. And I have never, looking at the plan, I was like, this is so different than what I've ever had. Like, I have days where I'm sitting on a rower for an hour, and that's going to be just like it's basic conditioning. It's not fancy, it's not flashy. I'm on the bike 3 days a week. I have an hour bike where, again, it's just honestly getting movement and endurance in those legs and building that aerobic capacity without taking volume with running. I do basic easy runs, 45 minutes to an hour, a couple days a week. And again, these are things that aren't fast, aren't speed, aren't tempo, aren't threshold. I have those, but I have them for a purpose a few days a week. And I think that was like my biggest lesson with going back to the basics is on my strength, it's strength. There's no conditioning in it. I am under a barbell and I'm doing work. When it's threshold, it's threshold. And that's my focus for that bit of time. I'm not mixing it with some slow work before or after. Like giving purpose to my training when it came to if you're going to lift, you're going to lift. If you're going to run, you're going to run was really helpful. And just honestly getting my body to respond and bounce back and recover in a way that I would go into a session feeling good and I would leave it feeling how I should feel it. So on the slow days, I was going slower than I wanted to, but that meant on the tempo days, I was hitting paces I never thought I could. And that was a really good lesson for me that took me a little bit to trust. And it took me a while to peel me back from those classes. He was like, do you have to do this? And I was like, no, I don't. I don't need to do that. And it's honestly like that trusting in that process it's been like 6 to 7 months and I've seen an insane improvement for myself. that I didn't think would be possible when I honestly slowed down.
Yeah. I think that's really good that you're saying that and so honest about like how you found it and felt as well, because like I think we've done a lot of running and we've done a lot of slow running, like our background. And so I think we've been quite used to that. Like the slow run is a slow run. Like you can have a conversation, you can like just chill and you can enjoy it. I mean, I know some people don't enjoy it, but I never really understand that because I do actually really enjoy it.
Like, I think when like throughout the week, if you do the sessions as they are intended, by the time you get to the slow run, you should enjoy it, because like the tempo run or the threshold run or the some of the sessions that you've done in the gym have been so full on and you're so done after them that you want that easy run, because you're like, oh yes, I don't have to like, you know, push. Yeah, I don't have to try and reach those paces. So like really it's like a very balanced week where you still can train, but like you said, you hit those threshold paces that you didn't think you could hit, probably because before you were doing 5 to 6 classes, like burning out, tired, and then you try and hit a threshold and you're so done that you can't hit those paces that you want to hit because you're already fatigued. But it's super interesting, isn't it? But I think it's different backgrounds, isn't it? Because we've come from a very like long endurance like background where then you're trying to find the speed and the power. So like for us, the threshold sessions and the speed chest sessions have been like
horrible.
Totally new, because we're trying
They're
to find
so horrible, but
but you get a good feeling after, and like when you hit them,
yes,
it's such a
I
cool
agree.
I think there's some from people we've interviewed, like they seem to be some of the favorite sessions is like a threshold session. I don't know whether people have said the same thing to you, but like that kind of session seems to be a very popular one that people are like, I don't like it, but I also do, and when I've finished I really enjoy it.
I think you see progress in threshold runs like that. To me, those sessions are the ones where I'm like, oh, this feels different than it did 2 months ago. It's really nice. I think that like gratifying feeling of that type of session working is really cool and easier to see than if like an easy run, like you're not really looking at anything on an easy run versus these thresholds where you have paces that you're aiming for and you can feel so different at that pace. I think that's why they just become so gratifying when your body starts to respond to the work that you've put in.
Yeah, 100%. And then, so taking you back to Hyrox and your 22 races, like one, which was your first race and what was your like experience there? And then like, have you done every category? Like talk us through a bit of
Yes.
your journey through Hyrox.
So my first race was an open race and it was in New York. And again, I had never really, I hadn't like touched a wall ball that much. I hadn't done a rope pull. And in New York, it was like 5 laps. So number one, I was also
That is
trying to
a
count,
lot of
like
laps.
my first timer brain was like, this can't be a real thing that's happening.
5 laps
I
is a
remember
lot.
even the burpees, which I had done, like I came from like a class setting where all we do was burpees, and the burpees was literally, I was like, people can't really do this. This is like, this isn't possible that people do this and enjoy this. But I finished and I remember someone took a video of me and it's like the sweatiest I've ever looked, but I was like smiling, like that rocked my world. And the first one is always the best because I had no time expectation. To me, I was like, hell yeah. I did like an open at the time. I did a 119 and I was like, cool. Like, I don't know any better. This is amazing. I've only done a few. I think I only did 2 other open races, and my last one was in DC with like a 104. So like again, I saw like crazy improvement. And once you've done pros and gone back to open, it was like it's all a running race. I mostly do pros now. I think majority of that, probably 14 to 15 of the 22 are pro solo ones. Um, and I love that race. I love that race because it is, again, it's no, you can't describe it. My first pro race, I remember finishing being like, that was a very different race than I could have ever imagined. You think going from open to pro is just going to be like oh, the weights are slightly heavier, but it changed the dynamic of the whole race. And it's hard to explain to people who haven't done it and they just do, but it's always like, yes, the weights are heavier, but everything else is more compromised. You have to like physically talk yourself into getting moving more than in an open race where you're just kind of like off. But in a pro, like you have to tell your legs, I know these lunges you just finished, but you have to go run again and you have to run just as fast. I felt like the mental talk was what made the pro and open very different because your body's telling you this isn't it. And you're like telling yourself to go faster. Um,
Yeah.
I think my favorite races, though, I have a training partner, Katie, and my doubles races with her are the most gratifying. We've won a few. We are going to Worlds this year. We went to Worlds last year together. Like our doubles races bring out like a different animal in each other. I think both of us are competitive, but don't come off that way. We're always smiling. But together we find this like second engine. Like I remember my first race with her, I was screaming. I was like, slow down. I was like, the whole time people are taking video and all I'm yelling at her is chill, chill, slow down. And I knew she was a better runner, but I was like, I've never seen this version of her screaming at people to get out of the lane. And I like loved it. I've never felt pushed more. We qualified after our first doubles race. We were like, oh, this is fun. And now I remember we went to Toronto this year and we won the open females and we like it's just a gear that you don't think you have. And it's almost like you're holding someone up next to you. Like it's hard to describe, but when I'm with her, I feel stronger. I feel like I'm capable of more. And we have this like amazing communication that just makes it the most exciting race that I do. So I do sprinkle in doubles. Like we're going to do Miami together this year. We're going to do DC together and then we'll do Chicago Worlds. But we try to put doubles in there occasionally because we find our love for Hyrox again through every pro solo race that tears you down. We find our love for Hyrox every time we do a doubles.
Yeah, I think it's the accountability thing as well, isn't it? Like when you're in the doubles racing, like you want to push harder because you know that they're pushing and they want to push harder because they know that they're with you. And it's like this kind of like mutual, like, I'll just keep trying to like catch you or chase you, or I'll just pull a bit harder on the ski or keep rowing
Yeah.
because I know that like I'm gonna get a rest and you're gonna do it. So it's like this weird kind of like accountability. You're in it together, but you also want to like do the best you can.
You don't want to let the other one down, do
Yeah,
you? So you're
like
like,
Yeah.
yeah, it's a really cool like way, and I think you do probably find that extra little gear to really push, knowing that you're in a team with someone else. So it's
Yeah. And I feel like as we became more similar athletes, I think we started as very different athletes. Her running was extremely like way over mine. I had a little bit more strength under me. When we started to even out as athletes, the races got even better and faster and more competitive because we had each other almost on each other's tails the whole time, being like, wait, we can still hold here. We can go faster. There was no one that you were holding up for. And I think we've gotten a lot more like joy and entertainment now that we are more similar as athletes. And everyone always asks me, they're like, what's your strategy with the doubles race? And I'm like, the goal is that you both are identical athletes going out there because that is when the race comes together perfectly. And if you're not, you find ways to compensate so that you even out as athletes somewhere in there. So if the stronger runner, if there's a big difference in your running abilities, that stronger runner should be starting and ending every station. Like it's almost like how can you even out the athletic abilities within it so that the race is something that you're both very capable of handling at that same type of effort.
Yeah, 100%. And then this is where like I guess Hyrox gets even more interesting because now people are starting to work that out because I think like give it a few years ago when like for example when we did our first doubles race you're just like okay we'll go in, okay we'll just halve everything, yeah cool, okay what should we do, yeah we'll just do half and half, okay should we switch, yeah we'll switch. Whereas now people are starting to strategize and be like okay whoever's faster at running like finish and end it, give the other person the middle bit so then they've got time to recover so then you can keep a faster pace. And then I don't know, there's more going on that's
absolutely no
idea.
strategy. Like
Oh, same. We had
yeah.
zero strategy our first one.
Yeah, just go in and do it, and you just kind of.
But without even getting fitter, you can get faster with a bit of a strategy, which is like crazy, really. It's that there's all these little things that I think keep people coming back to Hyrox because it's not just
Yeah.
You know, it's not just getting better at running or getting stronger, it's also like the strategy, it's things like trainers, it's things like fueling. Like there's so much you can do to get better. And then bringing it back to what you said right at the beginning, Alex, with the fact that it's you against you. Everyone's got a time that's like their time, a bit like, you know, a 10K, a 5K, a marathon. I think loads of people do marathons, but no one does marathons to win the London Marathon, or, you know, win the, you know, the big, no one's Kipchoge, you know, but everyone's doing it to beat their personal best. Like people have decided they want to get like a sub 4, or some people are like, I want to get a sub 3, or, and that's what Hyrox is becoming. It's like everyone is doing something to get their personal best. So whether it's they want to jump from open to pro, or they want to do a sub 60, or they want to do a doubles and they want to qualify for worlds, or this everyone's competing for them, which I think is why it's such a great community.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what about tips then? Do you have 3 tips that you could give to our listeners for either training or racing, or anything that stuck out that maybe you've heard from talking to the elites, or anyone in the community that you've spoken to that you could share?
I think my first tip that I love that my coach gave me, for kind of the nerves at the beginning of a race, like nerves are meant to be there, but his biggest thing that he told me was 15 minutes and engage. And I love that. It means like the first 15 minutes of a race, you just like let yourself feel it. You are not pushing hard. You're not like overthinking it. It's just a workout. It's 15 minutes of work that you've done every day. And after those 15 minutes, you click in. The nerves have kind of settled, your body's warmed up, and now you're finding that like level of push. And for me, the start of the race was always like mentally like so tricky to navigate, because so many things you're feeling. You want to follow the fast people, you want to get there first. And it was really nice to like have that in the back of my head, was like 15 engage. I have a game plan, and that's like one of my favorite cues that I've used a lot.
Oh, I like that.
The other one is around wall balls, and I feel like I give this to all the people that I coach as well who are starting with wall balls, is you don't have to do a massive big set. And I think everyone, again, in a perfect world, you get 100 unbroken, amazing. But the average athlete out there, 35, if that is going to tank you and you need to take a 30-second break to be able to go back into it, I'd much rather see you do 15, breathe for 5 seconds, another 15, breathe for 5 seconds. So it's more about limiting the time you're breaking and doing manageable sets to get you to that 100. Because I guarantee you, something like that will get you to the end faster than having to attempt to do these big sets that will end up making you do a set of 2 at a time. And again, I've been there. I've done sets of 2 on a wall ball, but it's always when I was really overstretching on my ability. And like, just like you do in a sled, where they say stop before you hit that point. It's same with a wall ball. Stop before you hit that point, so you know the rest is short and you can get back in.
Yeah, it's so true. I bet if someone tested, like, if they were, I don't know, they did like a tough workout and then they had 100 wall balls at the end, like 9 times out of 10, if you did like 10 by 10 sets, as opposed to trying to smash out a 50 and then doing 5 and then 3 and then 5, like your time for 10 by 10 would be quicker than smashing out a 50 and then tailing off the rest, like, because it's that you've pushed over the point and then you can't clear the lactic and you can't carry on.
And then on that, I think we had somebody, I can't remember who it was now, that said, like, and you used it, like it was ages back, but like if you drop the wall ball, a bit like you're saying, instead of waiting for 30 seconds, like if you drop the wall ball and you're having a second, like they were like 2 deep breaths and then go again, like give yourself something to go again instead of just dropping it. And because you're so tired, like 30 seconds will go so quickly because it feels like 5 seconds. Whereas if you're just like, okay, I'm going to drop the wall ball, I'm going to have 2 deep breaths and pick it back up again and go, like you need something to hold you accountable rather than doing 50 and then waiting around having 3 minutes rest and then
exactly,
such a good tip.
It's so true.
And the last tip I always give people, this is like the common question I get, just because I go to I do a lot of the PFTs that they do for Hyrox, and I have a lot of new Hyrox people that come train at our gym, and they're always like, what do I do to train? And I just say run. Doesn't mean a lot. Run 2 days a week. maybe 30 minutes. Like the goal is that you just need time on your feet and it's in the form of running. I think a lot of people forget that aspect of Hyrox, that it is like over 50% of the race is just running. And if you're not coming from a running background, it doesn't mean you can jump right in, but it also doesn't mean all these Hyrox workouts where you're kind of mixing everything in together to get there. You just need to purely have those time on your feet. So if you can do 2 to 3 days a week of running, it will go such a long way when it comes to your overall aerobic base in this event.
Yeah, absolutely. Because you've got the 1Ks and then you've got the rock zone as well, like, which I
Yeah.
think you forget about. I mean, like
Some are
we
huge,
did
aren't they?
we did Melbourne, yeah, in December, and I was like, God, I swear this rock zone goes on forever. You know, I know it's the same at
Have
every
you
race,
ever measured the
but
distance of a race for yourself?
no,
No, I haven't
no,
actually.
Like total mileage? I mean, like I remember I did one this year and it was almost 6.2 miles. And that
yeah,
means that on top of the 1K with Rock Zone, with
Yeah, so
everything,
it's like
that's like
10K basically.
yeah,
Yeah,
yes, that's a
two
lot
extra K.
more than people assume and train for. And I always try to remind people of that, is like the distance is, while it doesn't seem like distance, it is distance by the time you get to those last 2 to 3 runs.
yeah,
Yeah, and even sometimes when you just running into the exercise stations, so say like you get
Yep.
run into the rower but you have to run all the way down the opposite
All the
end
way.
of the rower, like
Yeah.
you're like, God.
yeah,
And whatever happens, you've got to run out the other end, even if the rower is right there. But like the exercise
Yep.
stations themselves, because the halls are so big, and now because Hyrox is getting bigger, there's more people, so the actual locations they're choosing are getting bigger. So
Yep.
then the distance is more.
So
But
true.
yeah, they're three like amazing tips.
Yeah. Yeah.
Definitely. So who taking you back to the letter, then the hybrid letter, if people were looking at it, who's like some of the top people, if someone was going to go now and think, oh, I'm going to read back in your back catalogue, what are the three top letters you think like they could take something
Ooh.
from, or that you've enjoyed doing, or that are a mix?
Yeah. So we
That you
did a
would like
sports
recommend?
psychologist in
Okay.
one of the first few, and that was amazing. I'm blanking on her last name, but it's one of our first early issues. It's the only sports psychologist that we spoke with, and that was honestly amazing to hear the perspective of mantras and like how to approach racing. That was really great and an amazing interview to talk to. I did just interview Jane from Erg Army this week, and that will
Oh,
be
she's so
one of
good.
my top ones because I could have chatted with her for like 2 hours.
Yeah.
We also did someone on the rowing side who was amazing as well. So honestly, those type of experts in the field is great. Our first ever one was ironically with Lauren Weeks. We didn't realize how cool it was until we looked back and we were like, man, the first one we ever did was Lauren Weeks, and she was so willing to talk. So it's really cool to see the progression of like the athletes that we have continued to get, because she was amazing. But honestly, we've now been doing most of Leah the Elites, but some of the coolest people are like Janelle Teal, we did last week, who's a mom, and
Yeah.
she was in the military, jumped out of airplanes for a living for so long before. Like it's people like that that I'm like, they're amazing people to listen to and hear what they've done.
Yeah.
People have got such varied backgrounds, haven't they? It's
Yep.
like super cool to hear what people's backgrounds are, and then everyone's ended up doing a similar thing.
Yeah.
It's like everyone
Yeah.
wants the same challenge.
Yeah,
I don't know.
and you take something different from everyone. And like, I mean, the sports psychologist, I think, is really cool. Like, I was gonna ask about like kind of mental strength, and that's what you often like, I guess, hear is the difference in the elites. Like they can just go to this extra level of pain. They have like this kind
Yeah.
of extra key to unlock that mental strength and resilience and keep going and kind of buzz off the hurt and the pushing through. Like, is there anything that you kind of say to yourself? I know you've mentioned the 15 minutes and then engage, but is there anything that you say to yourself when you're really in the hurt locker to keep going and to keep pushing on the mental side?
There are two things that I always use. Am I allowed to swear?
Yeah.
Okay. So one of them I actually got from Vivian Tafudo because she said this once, and I now have a flag of it. It's hilarious, but it's let's fucking ball. And I just like love that because it honestly puts you in this like superhuman, ego that's definitely not my normal character, but it's almost like it's like the why not stance. Like, why not just ball? Why not just go all out and try? And I think as athletes, especially from an endurance background, it's really hard to find that push and trust that you can hold on to that push. So I love that mentality. Something else that I said, I am a vocal motivator. So in a class setting, if you see me taking class with you, I'm the one who's like, yeah, let's go. Or I'm like saying, hey, nice job. Like in a race, I'm talking to the girls next to me. I'm like, yeah, let's got it. We got this, guys. Like during the sled push. And people are like, is this person talking? But it's
Can
actually
we race
helping.
next to you?
I know.
And they're like, I think they're like, I don't know why she's talking, but like, yes, it's maybe helping you, but it's helping me way more.
Yeah.
That like vocal engagement brings me in the zone, and I feel like I click into another level with myself. So I'm always going to be that vocal one who's going to be encouraging everyone around me, especially on the running course. Whenever I'm passing someone, I know them, I'm like, yes, let's got it. Or they're passing me. I mean, elites pass me all the time, and I'm like, yeah, you got it. Like Maria Fessick has passed me in almost every single race I've run this last year, and I dream to be like her. But every time I'm like, yeah, you got it. Like that to me, like actually pumps me up. So I feel like that vocal piece. I talked to a coach and he said the same thing. He's like, it's that vocal piece sometimes takes it out of your body and reminds you that like you're not suffering, you got more to give. So I kind of still use that a lot.
It's like self-talk, isn't it? But you're
Yes,
vocalizing it.
audibly.
Then it's the whole thing of like, you know, when they say like, oh, if you smile, you feel less pain.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like, and to
That's what
make
the
it
sports
so that
psychologist talked
because
about.
yeah, like you're encouraging other people, you're smiling, like you might get a reaction back from them that makes you feel good, that takes you away from the fact that maybe you're hurting. I don't
Yeah,
know.
but I mean, it just reminds me of like we had a friend who was racing an 100K race, like road race laps.
God.
Why you would ever do that, I don't know. But
Ugh.
like we went to cheer her on and we went to watch
It was
and
like the world champs. It was
in Germany,
Wow.
yeah,
yeah. And we got to like the like a course where they were doing the loops and we're like, oh, I'm sure we'll see her come past soon. Like I don't think we had a tracker, but we're like it wasn't that long. And then we just heard like, woo, yeah, let's go, come on. And we were like, yeah, that's Jo, there she is. And she was doing exactly that. Like it wasn't to like
she almost had a great time on the course. Everybody else was like, I'm
Yep.
the world champs. I've got
Miserable.
okay to
Yeah.
do. I've got to keep to this pace. There was no music. It was silent. But all you could hear was
Ugh.
Joe on the track. But she was smiling. She was running. She was like saying hi. She was making friends. And she just looked like she had the best time. And
like cheering other people on and like because it was a lapped thing, a bit like Hyrox. You obviously see the same sort of people, you know, because if you're in a wave with someone and you're running about the same pace, like you will be going into the exercises around the same time and you will be like
Yeah.
laughing. So it was like the same sort of thing, that cheering on other fellow athletes was obviously like giving her the buzz to keep going and like enjoy the moment and bring it back to like, you know, this is why I'm here. Like I want to race, I want to enjoy it, I want to make the most of it. So I think the same sort of thing obviously like mentally works for you, that it brings you back into that moment of like, yeah, we can do this, like we're in it together, let's go. Like yeah,
Yeah.
really
And I'm
cool.
known as the person that's always smiling. And it's the running joke of people at my gym. I have a high ponytail that gives like the same kind of energy that I'm giving in a workout. And I'm always smiling through the worst workouts. And I feel like I do it a lot in Hyrox because it's like that release almost. And like I may going by and I'm like smiling and they're like, why are you smiling? And I'm like, I'm in pain. I'm not having fun. But this makes me like releases a little bit of that as much as I can.
yeah, it's so I think it is true. And like you said, that if you spoke to the psychologist about
Yep.
it, and we've done quite a bit with psychologists, and they do say like if you smile and if you enjoy it and you have your what works for you, then you get through it. And
Yeah.
it's obviously
Yeah.
working. So what are you doing in Vegas this weekend? Are you doing
Solo
uh
pro on
solo pro
Saturday.
on Saturday? Oh,
Mhm.
okay, cool.
But I'm excited to watch the elites on Friday, which is like one
Yeah.
of the big reason I was like, I really want to go to this race. So I'm going in tomorrow and then I'll stay till Sunday, but it's one of those whirlwind race weekends. So
Yeah, absolutely. And what's your so your coach Dylan will be racing?
yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that'll be cool to go and watch him. And then
Yep.
I'm
Knock
guessing
on wood, he has an amazing race. So
yeah, fingers crossed, because it's very open for the men. I think like it's looking like a super open race, and then the
Yeah,
women, it's going to be interesting as well because obviously Joanna
it's
won the
insane.
last one. So
Yeah.
and I can't see Lauren Weeks like holding back too much. So I think that's going to be an interesting battle at the beginning.
Yeah, and this is almost like Lauren's home turf in the fact
Yeah.
that like this is like barely any travel and they've been dying to have a race back in Las Vegas for a while. I mean, the elite races are so fast now. They're incredible to watch. It's a totally different athletes than you see videos from like 2021, 2022 that are just like the
Yeah.
crowd is small and the athletes are completely different than where they are now, where it's really hard to get into that top 15. And the athletes that do like a Joanna are amazing and they come in fast and it's insane to watch.
Yeah, it is. It's getting. I mean, it's getting more professional, isn't it? Like people are
Yes.
specifically racing it now. Whereas go back 4 or 5 years ago, and if you were a half decent runner, no one knew that much about it. It was a bit easier to
Yeah, and
break into
people
that.
weren't putting their sole focus into it. You know, I
Yeah.
think a lot of athletes were doing it alongside either like the OCR racing or like the 10Ks and half marathon. You know, it wasn't just a sole, I'm gonna be a Hyrox
Yes.
athlete. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And then before you move on to the cheeky
No,
insights,
no,
because I
go
know you
for it.
probably are going to. With your hybrid letter, you talk a lot about. I know you cover a bit of Deca as well, and you've done some Deca races. And then you say other hybrid races. Is there a lot of hybrid racing coming up in America now? Like we're starting to see a lot of different like races in the UK where people are starting to do a few like bits where they're they've got the track and then they're doing some exercise. They all look kind of like Hyrox, and obviously everyone's taking like the inspiration from Hyrox and seeing how well it's gone. So there's these little races that are popping up everywhere. Is it the same over in the States? Is like
It's the
hybrid racing
same.
becoming a thing?
Yeah, honestly, it's more of like how people can get more access to racing more frequently that may not be as much as a expensive trip to get to. Like I think DECA is not as expensive as a Hyrox is. And then you have like Battle Bunker. You have a lot of these like smaller communities that are making these races, hybrid games, HyberCon, all of that that are bringing in a smaller community that are almost a little different athletes, like a little bit more strength focused, some are a little bit more running focused. But I think when we saw like that hybrid catch-all, it's more about like the style of training that some people are now training. They're lifting super heavy and doing that CrossFit type lift, but at the same time, they're running marathons or running 100 milers, they're doing ultras, like that type of athlete we're seeing a lot more. And they're doing these races, but their training is almost more brutal than like even some of the races that they do. Their training is what they devote their time to, doing these 50-mile races every once in a while just to see if they still have it.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's a very similar. It's quite interesting to see like where it's going to be in, I don't know, 5, 10 years
I
time, isn't
know.
it?
Yeah, definitely. Shall we go on to
Yeah.
the cheeky
Yeah, we can do
insights?
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
We've got 8 questions for you. The first one is, what shoes do you wear to race Hyrox?
The Saucony Pros.
Okay.
Oh,
I've
yeah.
like loved them, stuck with them, staying with them, I think.
Okay.
Perfect. They're obviously working for you.
Yeah, good answer.
Yeah.
Next one. Now, I think this will be a hard question. Which is your favorite Hyrox venue that you've raced in? Because there's
And
been a few.
Nice was incredible.
Okay.
Nice, you can't beat. I know the heat and everything, but that was an insane venue to compete at. Especially
And
because
you,
the US, we can't top what you guys have. Like it is sad convention centers with like hollowed in walls and carpet on the floor. Like and Nice was like my first experience of what you guys see in High Rocks. And I was like, oh, I need to do this more. I'm sick of being in a convention center.
There is some convention centers now. Like Olympia's lovely, but then if you go to Excel, that's a convention center.
yeah.
There's a mix, so yeah, pick wisely. But
And
the
then you have
one,
Berlin, which is like outside on a,
yeah, the
I mean,
Temple
there's so
Art.
many cool ones.
Yeah, I think there's only going to be more, isn't there?
Yeah. And is
I agree.
Nice the only one you've done in Europe? Or
Yeah.
yeah. So the rest have all been in America?
Yep. So my goal of this next season is more international because I've done mostly, I think I've done almost every location they've had in the US. So it's time to branch out.
Yeah.
Cool. That's cool.
Exciting. Okay, next one is, which is your favorite Hyrox station?
Ooh, I have to say wall balls. I am known as the wall wall queen. I'm not necessarily amazing at it. I'm not doing 100 unbroken, but to me, it's like the accumulation of all your work really shows in that last 4 to 6 minutes of like sufferfest.
Yeah, for sure. It's just brutal. Yeah.
I agree. I agree.
Okay, next one. If you could do a doubles Hyrox with anyone in the world, dead or alive, who would it be?
I would love to do it with my coach. He would absolutely kill me in every
Yeah,
sense. I'm not saying I could keep up, but if I could race with Dylan, I feel like I would have a blast. Tara Jackson is another female that I'm extremely inspired by. And again, she would kick my ass in a race, but I would love to race with her as well because she has this competitive spirit that I like just like strive to have when I'm out there racing.
So you can give all the vocal motivation.
Yes, if I can breathe.
Yeah. The problem with racing with a coach though is they know your potential. So
Oh yeah. Oh,
you can't
100%.
hide, yeah.
Good answer. I like that. Okay, next one is, do you fuel for Hyrox? And if so, what do you fuel with and when do you take it in the race?
So I am the worst example of this, and everyone knows. And the joke for me, I love candy. So I race with nerd clusters in my pocket. They're my like candy of choice or Sour Patch watermelon. Just recently, I got into Martin's gels that I'll have during a race, but that doesn't matter. I'll usually have a Martin gel after the pull, and then in every station after, I'll have a couple nerd clusters if I feel like a little need for a little bit of sugar. But I race with mostly candy in my pocket. So
No, I mean Lauren Weeks did South
I
Africa.
know. I was like, I
Yeah.
must be onto something.
Sugar,
Yeah.
sugar, isn't
Yeah.
it? Like, yeah.
Yeah.
Love it, love it. Okay, next up is, what's your favorite type of training session for Hyrox?
Ooh. I have had to learn to love track sessions. I think they are really challenging and only require self-motivation and self like honesty when it comes to pacing. And I think those are the ones that I get the most out of mentally and physically. So I've learned to really love those type of sessions.
Yeah.
Fair. Yeah.
Track session's a good session.
Yeah, I agree.
Mhm.
Okay, next one is, in a nutshell, why should someone sign up for their first Hyrox?
Honestly, just to taste the vibe of Hyrox.
I
Like
thought you were
walking
gonna say taste
into
blood.
the
Honestly, just
maybe
taste.
pain and sweat and all the above, but walking in the door to your first Hyrox and like just the atmosphere is insane. If I could experience that feeling again, I would. And that's why I always tell people, if you're not going to do the Hyrox, go watch it, because I guarantee there's a bug that you will catch when you're in there. Drink some kind of Kool-Aid that will make you want to try it despite everything and how horrible people look running. And then when they finish the race and how they're like passed out on the side, all the above, you will somehow want to try it. It's just like get a taste of the vibe of what Hyrox is, however that looks like for you, whatever race that means. But it's something that like lights a fire in you, whether that means for your own fitness or for how you approach fitness or how you race fitness. It's just a really cool thing to experience. And even if you just do one, you do one. But I tell people, keep your credit card handy once you do one, because it's close by ever since. So
Yeah, so true.
Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
no, that's a good point. And like going to watch it even is just, it gives you a taste of like what it is. And yeah, I think most people have got hooked.
Yeah, I don't
Yeah.
know many people that have just done one and not done
No.
another one. Like, it is,
exactly.
yeah, for sure. You get the bug. Okay, and lastly, is there anyone that you would like to see on our podcast that we could interview, or a type of person in the Hyrox world that you'd like to hear more from?
Ooh, that's a tricky one.
I know there's so many, like there's
I
so
know.
many, and
I know.
like,
Actually, so it's honestly, and I interviewed Danielle, who's the start line person for the US races, and she's like the motivator at the start line giving the countdown. And is it Jean Jeed, who's for the UK?
Getty
yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
She is someone that I have like constantly, that to me is my like if I could have like a bucket list job, that's my job. I
Yeah,
just
sounds like
find
it.
what they yeah, I find what they do so important in the race, cool in the race, and a really tough job to do for 12 to 16 hours on a day. So that would be my person that I would love to hear more, just because I know her mom does it now. She races herself. Like, it's really cool. So that would be my suggestion person.
Yeah, she'd be good to get
Yeah.
on, wouldn't she? Like last time, to be fair, last time we spoke to her about coming on, she was like, I'm at this Hyrox race, I'm at this Hyrox race. Like her
Yeah.
diary was like, we were like, yeah, okay, we'll touch base again when you're not.
Yeah.
Like
We
there
you're
was so
you're
many
busy.
going.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, oh, you probably just don't really want to talk about Hyrox if you're like
Yeah.
trying to be the hype girl for like 16 hours, isn't it? It's like the energy
Exactly.
that you've got to give to people to get back to like finish the
Yeah.
race and get around the race. And yeah, no, totally. That's a really good one.
Yeah, very important. They do their jobs well,
Yeah,
for sure.
for sure. So, Alex, if people are listening and they've not heard of the hybrid letter, like where can they go to find out? What can they do? Could you give a bit about it and where people can find you to find out more?
Yeah. So the hybrid letter, we drop a new newsletter every single Friday that includes an athlete interview, an athlete spotlight, so someone like local in the community, whether it's here, whether it's in the UK, and then some kind of like secondary article that may include something that's new in the community. We talked about ketones last week. We sometimes provide a workout. This week is going to be a workout from Dylan Scott. Like, we kind of give a little burst of something hybrid in there in the middle. You can find us on Instagram, the hybrid letter, and that's where you can also subscribe so you get it weekly in your inbox. I'm Al Shabes on Instagram. I feel like I post mostly Hyrox content to nauseum, but also like occasional candy and like early wake ups. So I feel like it's a good blend of everything. But those are two great ways to follow and subscribe so you can kind of get that weekly email in your inbox on Friday when you're avoiding work.
Yeah, that's so good. I think it's awesome. We'll link everything below anyway, and when we share the podcast, we'll share it all on Instagram so people can find you. But
Awesome.
yeah, was there anything else you wanted to add? I don't know, you've got so much experience from talking to people. Is there anything we've missed that the listeners need to know, or anything you'd like to add before we wrap it up today?
No, I love this. I think what you guys do for the community is so cool. And it's honestly like, this is the best way to reach the community, is talking about it, because everyone wants to talk about their Hyrox race and their Hyrox experience. So I love having the opportunity to do that. And I think what you guys do is exactly what people want to hear on a weekly basis, on a monthly basis. It's all they want to absorb, is like why people like are so passionate about it.
Yeah, and it's so nice to meet other people that are doing it. So like, thank you to you as well for like creating something else and in a different format, because
It's
yeah,
important.
it is cool to reach different people, and people need to have something to keep themselves occupied at work, because
Yeah,
sometimes
you can't do work all the
working behind a
time.
computer isn't all, yeah, if you can read, you have a back catalogue now and someone's gonna be like, oh great, they're gonna be
I
like,
know, now they got plenty to do.
yeah, plenty to do. Well then, all that is left is for us to say good luck in Vegas this weekend.
Thank you.
Hope you enjoy watching the elites as much as you do enjoy racing it. We'll have to follow your progress on Instagram and see how you get on.
Thank you.
But yeah, thanks to everyone for listening. If you could share this episode, that would be great. If you want to sign up to the hybrid letter to get more information, then yeah, get over and do it. And yeah, follow the show. If you haven't already followed us, that helps us to get some awesome guests on. And yeah, get you more information from the hybrid space, which is rapidly growing. But yeah, thank you for your time. Thanks, Alex. And
Yeah,
we'll
thank
catch you
you.
guys on the next episode.